Thank you. So I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. Are we ready to go ahead with the roll call?
Sure. Chair Willis,
Present.
Vice Chair Pease,
Present.
Board Member Bauer,
Present.
Board Member Eagleston Cheslowich,
Present.
Board Member Heinrich, Board Member McKinnon,
Present.
Board Member Wimmer.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Amy, do we need to read through our rigmarole? Thank you.
Pursuant to AB 361, this meeting will be held with the option to attend by teleconference or in person. Members of the public may provide live public comment by submitting a speaker card prior to the start of public comment on that item. Speakers may also address items that are not on the agenda during the oral communications portion of the meeting. Spoken comments via computer or smartphone will be accepted through the Zoom app. To address the board, go to zoom.us/join. Meeting ID is 968-0019-7512. When you wish to speak, click on Raise Hand. When called, please limit your remarks to the time limit allotted. To offer comments using a regular phone, call 1-669-900-6833 and enter meeting ID 968-0019-7512. When you wish to speak on an agenda item, hit *9 on your phone so we know that you wish to speak.
Thank you. So do I have a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing use of teleconferencing for Historic Resources Board during our about to end COVID-19 state of emergency?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. And a roll call vote or a voice vote? Can we ayes it?
I can do roll call. Board Member Bauer,
Yes.
Board Member Eagleston Cheslowich,
Yes.
Board Member Heinrich.
Yes.
Board Member McKinnon,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pease,
Yes.
Chair Willis,
Yes.
Board Member Wimmer.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public at this time?
No, we have no in-person comments or raise hands on Zoom.
Thank you. And does anyone have any agenda changes, additions, or deletions before we start? And seeing none, we will move on to our schedule of meetings and assignments, which is before us on our screens. Where are we, Amy? Are we canceling the next one in February?
I believe we have absences, or at least one absence on the 23rd. So, and I think will give us a little cushion, a little time to get our kickoff going on the big project we'll talk about today. So I think the meeting on, let's see, March 16th would be our next meeting. Maybe we can see if there's any planned absences.
Okay, so more than a month, but I think that it should give us time to get wound up for our job. Anybody object for any reason? Okay, so we'll reconvene, we'll meet again on the 16th of March.
Is that the correct date?
Is it not the correct date?
Oh, it can't be.
It's the ninth.
Sorry,
All right,
I'm sorry.
it's, oh, March, it should be March 9th. My apologies.
Okay,
It will all show up on the 16th. and then-
March 9th. It's not as far away as all that. Well, it is a month away. Exactly.
thank you, Christian, for noticing. So the 23rd of February is canceled. We'll meet again on March 9th.
And at the March 9th meeting, I will bring forward the bylaws for the Historic Resources Board for a final discussion and action on the number of remote meetings. This is because the emergency related to COVID-19 is going to be ending officially in March. And so we'll begin that. Hopefully all of you were able to attend the training back in December. So you know what I'm talking about.
And maybe at the end of, before we can end the meeting today, we could just talk briefly about what council and ARB are doing. So we
Sure,
have some framework.
I can report out.
Thank you. So study session, inventory update, kickoff. Woo!
Yes. So I will just give a brief overview. The City Council back in March, nearly a year ago, directed staff to work with the HRB to review the approximately 165 properties that were deemed eligible previously in the 1998 to 2000 survey to see, first of all, are they still there? Have they been demolished or significantly altered? And make recommendations for listing of these National Register eligible properties to the city's historic resources inventory, and then would be subject to the provisions of Palo Alto Municipal Code, Chapter 1649. And so we took that and did a request for proposal. We had several proposals that we reviewed, and at long last, the contract is ready this week. So what this does is to follow comprehensive plan policy L7.1.1. And it was listed on the HRB's work plan for last year as goal number 2. So I have here the tasks of the in the scope. I also have here joining us is Christina Dykes, and I have also Isabel Castellano, who will be assisting me in this effort as we kick off. So just an overview would be the first task, survey update of reconnaissance survey of residential properties. So that's pretty much the first thing to do. And it's about 130 National Register properties that are in the residential category. And then, there had been some work done by the HRB committee to look and see which one of those seems to have been demolished. So that work was started last year, and there was the belief that about 11 properties had been demolished. So that work will take place. And we're going to be doing some kickoff activities with the consultants and staff, and we'll welcome any potential committee of the board, if that's of interest, to participate in, join in on the kickoff. This just shows what the board was up to last year confirming the existence and integrity, is the first task. Then we have an optional task, which is commercial properties that there were about 35 of those on the survey of 2000 that were not residential. And so take a look at those. Then we have our second task that is about preparing, using the work that had been done, which I brought with me in the chambers today for anyone who wants to see the original photographs and forms. So that would take place as shown on the screen. And then we have further tasks related to task 2. We have public outreach, we have public hearings. We're having our consultant attend, and we're having outreach. So this will include website presence and community meetings. We talked about having an evening community meeting. So that's of interest. And yeah, so this is, and then just the overview, we showed this about a year ago, where our inventory properties are and where, let's see, a little bit blurry. But we have maps for folks to see, and I believe these are uploaded on the city's website. We did that last year. So people could find them. It's very hard to see like a needle in a haystack here, but. So with that, I will introduce Christina. And Christina, I don't know if we talked about maybe the HRB would like to have a discussion about outreach, because last year there was a draft letter prepared that was going to be introducing folks that do have those properties to the process and the value of having a historic home. And so that needs to be tweaked and updated for this year as we kick off this process. Christina?
Hi, everyone. I'm here with Ruth Todd, principal in charge of this project at Page and Turnbull, and my colleague Barrett Ryder as well, who will be conducting the survey and working on the project. I'll be the project manager on Page and Turnbull's side. We did sit down yesterday to talk a little bit about outreach. Page and Turnbull specifically will be providing information for the city's website, including an FAQ. We'll try to emphasize the incentives of being on the HRI, as well as the mechanics of how this project will work. We're also tasked with 2 community meetings, as Amy just mentioned, one at the start of the project to introduce the scope of work, and then another at the point where we have completed the reconnaissance survey and have a sense of which National Register properties we will be working towards adding to the local inventory. And at that point, there'll be an opportunity to share our findings and have community input. We talked about potential letters. Perhaps there could be 2 letters aligned with the intentions of both of those community meetings. One that lets all property owners just know about the project and what's happening. And then perhaps another at the time, again, after we have completed the reconnaissance survey, that's more focused on the properties that will likely be nominating for the inventory to do some outreach at that point. And so I do think there'll be some tweaks to the letter that was started to be drafted, specifically discussing the National Register rather than California Register, and then how we're going to use that information that already exists to apply the criteria for nomination to the National Register to the local inventory instead. But we're happy to discuss a little bit more if you have some questions or
Any-
Would you be willing to work with some of targeted homeowners or property owners in advance to review those letters for their clarity and other feedback?
You gotta get closer, I think.
Would you be willing to review those letters in draft with representative members of these property owners for them to give feedback in terms of its clarity and completeness? Particularly in terms of if you choose to, if your property is listed, what responsibilities and potential benefits come with that?
We don't specifically have scope to work directly with the homeowners, but I believe that Isabel may be doing that on the part of the city to do outreach directly with the property owners. Isabel, maybe you can talk a little bit about that, or Amy.
Carolyn?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons that we have, expanded through the use of another qualified historic preservation professional. So Isabel is with one of our on-call consultants and can provide, the ability to have outreach, emails, phone conversations that might extend. We expect that there will be quite a bit of back and forth with each property owner on this process. So I'm one person and I have many hats. So this is why we have another resource to help us with this.
Paige and Turnbull is happy to take a look at the draft letter that was already developed and provide some comments, and we can work with the HRB and city staff. We don't want to spend too much time on it because we'd like to focus our outreach time on those community meetings and material for the website that we're scoped to do. But we're happy to do like one pass at comments on that letter.
I have a few just random thoughts. So if a homeowner is very excited and they want their house on the National Register, is there an easy path for them that we can assist them to actually get beyond just our local inventory?
Well, anybody can initiate a National Register nomination. It does take a lot of historic research, and it does help to have a consultant to prepare it and work with the California Office of Historic Preservation. So I think we could provide, some basic guidance or direct them to the OHP website that has the instructions for how to initiate, or the National Park Service to initiate a National Register nomination if they're interested in doing so.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it'd be great to do some kind of workshop. I mean, I'd like to see us go as far as we can, obviously. And I think some people will be enthusiastic. So I'd like to sort of keep that in mind, that we need to create the easiest path forward for that to happen. Also, what about people like me who insulted that their house was analyzed and determined not to be eligible for the National Register? Is there an opportunity to relook at some of the properties that were analyzed 20 years ago? I know that's not in our scope, but truthfully, I'm a little surprised that one of my property, my house, was taken off that list. So I just think we need to be open to what's ahead of us. And I guess my third thought is that if somebody's has a property that's on this list and is all gung-ho, can we shortcut the process? And, if they want it on the local inventory, we just put it on local inventory and take it off one list and put it on the other?
I'll just weigh in. I think because our scope, I think we need to take the scope and the timeline that we have, because even if they want to be immediately put on the inventory, if they've removed the front of the house, we need to go and see the house and see how the integrity is.
Yes, true. Yeah, I wasn't thinking we would not do any of the work, but I just thought that it's going to be a process to get people to agree to it. And I think if we had some core group that agreed early on, I support momentum. So any way we can get that, I think we should work towards that.
So I think we imagine with a community meeting on this, that we will have some people come forward on both sides of the, excited and the other side of that. So we need to kind of mobilize to get ready for that. And that's part of the preparation for the outreach.
Okay. And then Amy, can you send us a copy of the slides you just showed? Just so we have that. Do we have that?
Sure, I can.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments, David?
So Christina, one of the barriers to a listing on the California National Register, as you just alluded to, is what is the report you have to do? Is the historic inventory report? Is that what?
There's a nomination form.
Right. And former HRB member Debbie Shepherd investigated having her house, which is a stunning example of late 18th century architecture in Palo Alto, listed on the board, but she got to the point, when she saw the cost of the research that would be required, that was a barrier that she couldn't cross. And so I'm wondering if there's a way using this process to help people who want to be on a register move past that barrier. It's a financial barrier. It's a really big cost to get your house. So do you have any thoughts about that?
That's something we can certainly think about. I think the National Register is not necessarily meant to have a financial barrier because technically anybody could, draft a nomination if they put the time in and spend time reviewing the instructions and if they're a good writer. But certainly a lot of people do end up using a professional consultant to get the job done, and that does cost money. I don't have thoughts on the top of my head, but I think that's something that we could discuss to see if we have some suggestions for assisting homeowners to make that a little easier. I don't know if Barrett or Isabel or Ruth. Oh, Ruth, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, it could be part of, it's a little premature because we don't know how many properties would be, remain national eligible properties, National Register eligible properties, but it could be part of a discussion where the city, could offer a cost share, or that could be an incentive that would be offered if if properties want to go through those extra steps to actually get things that are eligible listed. And it could be an outgrowth of, this part of your preservation program, but, it would really be up to the city to consider something like that. Otherwise, there is, a financial or time burden on a property owner who wanted to move forward.
Let me clarify. When I probably said National Register, but I'm also thinking of California Register as well. So I didn't want to limit it just to the National Register, but.
The level of effort is somewhat similar, and the Office of Historic Preservation Registration Unit actually has indicated to us that if you're going to nominate the property to one of the registers, you might as well do it to the National Register. They consider the level of significance to be the same. Within a national, state, or local context of history. So we wouldn't necessarily recommend doing California instead of national.
Thank you.
Well, plus anything that's on the National Register is automatically listed on the California Register.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, returning to the communications here in the letter, for example, it's great you're going to put a bunch of stuff up on the city website that it needs to be there. That's essential. That's a given these days. But would there be scope and budget to possibly in these letters include that content in hard copy? Some people just don't take the time to go get online to check out something because they've been provided with a URL and a letter. But they might be more interested in finding out more if they could thumb through at least the headlines or some of the content that's up there and understand what's available to them to go look at. Is that possible?
We talked about that internally, and if we're going to be developing an FAQ anyway, I don't see the barrier aside from, you know, the mail cost in including a sheet, maybe a front and back with another sheet that's the letter. So it'll be 2 sheets within that envelope. That's something we could certainly discuss with Amy and Isabel as well.
I had a question. How much participation does the homeowner need to have in this process? Obviously, there are some significant homes that absolutely should be on the register, but I'm just thinking, what if, as an example, what if there is one of these homes and the homeowner says, I don't want my house to be on the register? Because a lot of homeowners think that a historic designation is limiting to that. But I just wanted to know what involvement does the homeowner need to have in this process of the nominations and actually getting on the register?
Well, certainly, this is when we take nominations forward first to the Historic Resources Board and then to City Council, we will include the homeowner as part of that, the reach out and correspondence. And hopefully, if we've done a good job in the outreach ahead of that, they're fully understanding what it means, what the incentives are, what the benefits tax-wise, and, you know, extra floor area, whatever, these things that we can offer in our existing code, as well as, you know, the value of having a historic resource in those other ways that it's valuable.
Yeah, I think the incentives are going to be really imperative to make it appealing, especially if the homeowner has to financially invest in, you know, like what we've talked about with, you know, our past board member wanted to do this, but it was financially unachievable, I suppose, but so, I mean, we've discussed incentives before. We've kicked around ideas. I think we have to just focus on making these incentives a real incentive for these homeowners, and which opens up the whole Mills Act question, which has been, you know, something that we've worked. I know that might be unrelated to this, but I guess this does involve the necessity of having incentives that a homeowner would say, yeah, I want to take advantage of this because this is a good thing for me. It's a win for me. I just was looking at it from that perspective.
Amy, I have a question. Would these properties that are National Register eligible, if there's a project, since generally people are concerned about being added to the inventory because they're concerned that it would become onerous to make changes to their property, would these properties still have the same review CEQA, whether they would be added to the inventory or not?
Well, no, I think the CEQA, if they're already determined and they have been eligible for the National or California Register, they're already subject to the CEQA process. The difference is that our ordinance in Chapter 1649 of the Palo Alto Municipal Code talks about coming to the Historic Resources Board for those properties that are Category 1s and 2s throughout the city, and Categories 1 through 4 if they're in the downtown or Professorville. That's how our ordinance is set up. So yeah, if they become a category, if they're nominated to a Category 1 or 2, then they're subject to our city ordinance that says there's a review process that's not simply at a staff level, depending on the extent of the changes. Obviously, we have assistance from qualified professionals to look at minor changes to buildings. But if it becomes a more major change, that would, and in Professorville, no matter what category, because that's a historic district, then, you know, our ordinance sets forth what that process is. So currently they're not subject to our ordinance because they're only eligible.
So it may be helpful to in as simple and clear a way as we can, outline what the difference, the change in process might be, so that there are some expectations of what they would potentially need to undergo if they did have a project that went to the HRB.
Yes, I think that's part of why we
Part of
need.
that FAQ.
Mhm. Yes, for the FAQ.
Yeah.
I just recall a story that Martin Bernstein, a former board member of ours, who was wonderful in a lot of ways, but and very experienced. And he had a house in San Francisco, and he was saying that in San Francisco, and I know we're not in San Francisco, but in San Francisco considers every house to be historic, and the homeowner has to prove that it's not historic. So I think that's kind of an interesting, sort of an interesting way to think about it, and not a bad. I mean, here we are trying to identify and preserve and prevent people from demolishing our historic fabric, which is tragic. But maybe we just consider all houses that are at least eligible for the register, right? We've already identified by just the age of the house, when you look at the parcel report, a lot of these houses are eligible. So I think that's a historic status right there. It's eligible, so it's historic. And maybe these people have to work hard to remove their house from a historic listing or potential listing. And maybe that would be their incentive. I mean, if they really don't want to be historic, then they can go through all that arduous tasks to get it off, but we should just consider them all historic. Why can't we do that? Am I just being,
That
I'm
would be a
notorious for
change.
being saying the dumbest thing, so.
That would be a change to the historic ordinance.
But why, well, now's the time to do it. I don't know. Sorry.
Just letting you know, that's a council level decision to.
I know, but we make all this effort and then it just sort of, we put it on paper. I just get a little like, I don't know, I need to close my mouth, but, I mean,
You asked what it would take. That's what it would take. Just letting.
We're putting this effort. So, I mean, I think the council does need to embrace what we're doing a little bit more directly.
Well, hopefully they will. I think baby steps, and this is a great one. And it would be, I mean, just adding to our ordinance after, how many years are we since we've added anything significant?
Well, there was that
Since
issue
this-
back in 1998.
Did we add anything in 1998?
There was an interim ordinance and a.
But did we add properties to our inventory in
No, I'm just
19?
saying the last time that the city touched the historic preservation ordinance,
Oh.
and some people will remember, was 1998, and that did not go very well. So just that's the
But-
context.
Our inventory dates from the late 70s, true? Early 80s?
It was initiated in the 70s and updated throughout until
Yeah, hardly.
through the 80s, I think.
So I do think that this is a huge step for us, getting anything significant added to this inventory and trying to bring it up to date. And hopefully in this process, we'll discover some community members who are enthusiastic about our historic fabric and are willing to help us maneuver our way through to get a really comprehensive, up-to-date historic inventory, because we're not even addressing the properties that have become 50 years old in the last 20 years. So I encourage us all to be very positive about this experience and look for the small things we can accomplish at this point. And hopefully this will just be the beginning to get the ball rolling, and people will start to understand the process and value these houses that have so much of our history. And we can start getting some momentum. So do we have any other comments before we move on?
I will just say that it's not uncommon for cities to kind of tier their survey efforts and start by either looking at properties that are under existing inventory to determine if they should still be listed after all these years, or as you're doing, kind of look at a select group of buildings that have been determined eligible at some point, and then potentially to add to the work plan at a later date, and when fiscally able to do so, a larger survey update. And it certainly is recommended to do updated surveys every, at least 10 years. But we've worked in other cities as well that have started out with a smaller group and then have gone from there.
Hopefully that's our direction. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing much more of you and moving this process forward, and getting to know you all better and working out our working relationship. For the board, I know we have a committee on the inventory, but do we want to have a 3-member committee that would work with the consultants to do refinement and, just be resources for them in this process? Subcommittee.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. So maybe we can, what's the best way to do that?
Well, I think you already have a subcommittee.
We do?
Mhm.
Is that our subcommittee? We can stick with that one.
I mean, I guess you could confirm that those folks are still interested.
Well, I am.
I
Why-
believe I am.
Go.
Why have a subcommittee? Why don't a subcommittee is 3 out of 7, right?
Yes.
Why don't we just stay at one committee and have all of us do it? And if someone's not available to do it, then
Only because we can move forward outside of our public meetings. I'm kind of hoping,
why can't we do it during a public?
well, I just think it would be nice for the HRB to have some input along the way before, we wait a month and then go, well, maybe that's not the way we want to go. I don't know. I mean, it might not be necessary. We'll certainly have both. I mean, it's not like the subcommittee in exchange instead of the board, but
I guess I just feel like, let's all be inclusive and all be involved. This is an important thing. So for people need then to be informed of what's happening. It all happens during these meetings. It would give us more content in the meetings that we have if we don't have an applicant. Let's all be one. Let's all do it together.
we can go
It's
that
just
way.
hard. It's hard to meet outside of these meetings anyway. I mean,
I
it makes
wasn't
these meetings
actually-
more purposeful.
Yeah, I
if
wasn't
we are all
thinking
in
so
on it.
much meetings as, just, call and response, I guess. If they have questions that we would be able to
If
talk amongst
Christina has questions,
a small committee.
if our
Yes.
consultants have questions of us,
Yeah.
what questions would they have?
I
They
do
know more than
not
we do.
know. Perhaps none. Perhaps she's
Yeah.
got it all together.
I think we should all be available
Okay, I'll let it go.
for this effort.
Okay.
But much appreciated that the subcommittee had gone off to see approximately how many of
Yes.
those resources may not exist.
Our survey
So,
group.
Yeah,
Yes,
that gave us some input to develop the scope as well.
good. Okay, well, let's move on to approval of minutes unless anybody has anything further on this one. Are we good? Do we have any changes or any corrections to the minutes? Or a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Thank you. And all in favor? Can I do that? I never remember what I have to do one by one. Amy, do I need to do approval of minutes one by one, or can we just do voice vote?
Typically, we do voice.
Thank you.
vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Thank you. And the approval of minutes carries. Bylaws. Amy, do you want to give us just a little 2 seconds on, what council and ARB are doing regarding bylaw changes regarding attendance. And we'll talk about it in March or get our own policy in
Sure.
March.
Yeah,
but-
just a really quick update. The council decided, I think it was on January 30th, to set their maximum number of remote meetings at 5 meetings during any calendar year. And I believe the bylaws that have been adjusted for the ARB for next week followed suit. So 5 absences, 5 remote attendance meetings for the year. Now, we'll talk about this next time, but I will be preparing draft, annotated bylaws to, put something like that, and then the board can discuss that and vote on it. So think about, what's the maximum that you would be comfortable having. Yeah, but we haven't agendized it today, so we shouldn't talk much about that today.
No, thank you. I just wanted a heads up rather than a discussion. So comments, Alyssa, can you give us a little briefing on how it went with the cannery and the I'm spacing, I know this name, but the committee?
Yeah, so I went and met, I went to the public meeting of the Public Art Commission, and where they were discussing just sort of initial ideas and siting for an art installation at the Fry's site. And so they're certainly very receptive to and in favor of incorporating aspects of the site's history into the public art plan for the site. The site's under consideration. There's sort of like a corner area that could accommodate a sculpture, but there's at least one area of the building that is under consideration for the installation of a mural. And so that's sort of interesting from like a, historic architecture perspective, and, how that impacts the site. But yes, in terms of engaging with the overall history of the property, that's something that's top of mind, it sounds like, for them as well.
Thank you. Do we have any other board comments or questions before we adjourn?
I have a comment. I attended the past meeting yesterday evening, and they are having a May 7th program. It's their 27th recognition of historic homes and buildings. They also have institutional and commercial buildings on their list this year. They are focusing on Burge Clark on his 100th centennial. And I'm not sure if it was the opening of his office or, what that landmark is for the 100 years. But they were wondering if the city would do a proclamation recognizing Burge Clark's contributions. So does anyone from the board think that we ought to do something like that?
Yes, that sounds great. And I think council would love to do that. It's the kind of thing they find they're tend to be enthusiastic about. So we could do that, and we could also ask council and get that one going.
Can I ask what date was that? Did we have is that February or
May
later?
7.
May 7th.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And also PAST is beginning their spring walking tours at the end of April. And there's going to be 4 different tours given this year. They've included downtown North because they've never included that area before. So there's a synopsis of all of their walks that they will post on their website. So if anyone here is interested in doing those walks.
Great. I have a quick question for Amy. Could you give us like a 30-second review of what the ARB review of the Fry's site focused on, or how that went?
It might be worth more than 30 seconds, and
As much as time as you want.
yeah, no, I'm I
Or
have my,
I mean, I could also talk to you after the meeting. I'm just
yeah,
curious.
I'm not really prepared to give a really
Okay, that's
concise
fine.
summary.
Okay, but we'll circle back individually.
I also have a comment. Some of you may have seen this, but a week from today, between 9 and 2, the California Preservation Foundation is doing a webinar on California state housing laws and preservation planning, which I thought was pretty timely. And so I signed up for it. The city's paid whatever we paid to participate. So if you can take that amount of time to delve into it or do desk work while you listen, I'm pretty interested in the point of view of the panelists, but also if there are questions from other cities or comments about how folks who are doing similar things in those cities are responding to this new environment. So I just thought I'd let you know. about
When is
that.
it?
It's a week from today, between 9 and noon,
Okay.
online. So
Staff is, 2 staff members are also, myself included, are attending as well. But if anyone else is interested, send me an email and we'll get
Yeah.
you signed up.
Also, the California Preservation Foundation's annual meeting is being held in San Francisco this year, and it's a really fabulous way to be immersed for a couple of days in all the various issues that preservation involves. We did it, last time they were in San Francisco was what, 10 years ago, maybe?
The awards,
No,
Are you talking about the
well, yeah, maybe. Anyway, so the board, most of the board members went, and it was really valuable experience. So encourage you to look it up and send through the city. I don't think we paid anything, did we? Or maybe the city paid.
I just remember getting a van and hauling us
Yeah.
up there
Right.
in our finery. And
Yeah.
it was a lovely event and we were receiving awards.
Right. It's
for-
held
for-
at the Presidio, I think, this
Yeah.
year, which it was whenever they were here last. So it's really a fabulous experience. Encourage everybody to go.
Amy, can you check and see if there's a cost to board members to go? Because it wasn't totally clear online. It was like 0 to whatever, so I think it depends on what kind of membership you have. So if you could check and see, because it was significant if, some of the money was significant. Any other comments, questions before we adjourn? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Anyone?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Thank you. And all in favor?
I.
Aye. And opposed? Thank you. And thank you all. And hopefully we got the ball rolling here.